life and leadership is like a chess game.
That's how you learn, but that's how you lose as well.
You never lose. You learn. You can always walk away as a winner. I don't know if the goal even is to always be the best. You should always try to put yourself in a room where you're the dumbest person. Because that's where you learn.
Resilience is curiosity to you. What do you mean with that?
It's being able to see always opportunities rather than problems. You have a certain amount of energy per day. Question is, where do you focus your energy?
Okay, welcome back to the latest episode of the FLT podcast. For a couple of episodes now, we've been talking with Finns, prominent Finns from different backgrounds and industries. And what we all agreed on really early is that we'll need a perspective on Finland and Finnish leadership from someone that's got a good experience sort of outside of Finland and the Finnish borders. And so today I'm delighted to introduce Lena Grenat. Lena, how are you feeling?
Good, excellent. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome, thanks for coming. As always, we've prepared a little bit of an introduction. Annalie, would you do the honors?
Absolutely. So Lena, you are an international leader, an entrepreneur, and a resilience and leadership coach trained at the Coaches Training Institute. You hold a bachelor's degree in business management from University of Phoenix, and you have studied social psychology at Helsinki University. You are one of 6 kids, and you yourself have 2 sons who live in the US. You describe fitness as your lifestyle. You lived about 20 years in the US and are a dual citizen. In the US, you worked in various corporations and founded 3 businesses. So you understand both the challenges of running your own business and the complexity of working for a large corporation. Since 2016, you work as the executive director at SAM, or SAM?
Sam, it's good.
A non-profit organization promoting cultural exchange between United States and Finland. SAM is a platform for volunteers who share a common interest in American and Finnish cultures. Since 1945, SAM has awarded scholarships to Finnish master's degree and doctoral students who want to study in the US. It also arranges 40 to 50 summer intern positions for Finnish students yearly. You have moved from Finland to Seattle, from Seattle to Florida, and returned to Finland. You have started your career from scratch multiple times. Related to that, you talk about the strengths of 1, investing in the networking, creating your own personal story, that's 2, and 3, choosing your attitude, how you approach new cultures and challenges. You advocate for multicultural leadership and how to grow resilience. In one podcast I listened to, you said that resilience and fearlessness grow when you throw yourself into something unknown with an unwavering, optimistic attitude. It requires curiosity and belief that failure is not the end of the world. Not asking for help is not resilience. And I unquote. Is this an accurate description of you? And how can a leader help others become more resilient?
I think that is an accurate description of me. Good job searching my background. How can we be more resilient? I think the life is the best educator. It throws us into situations where we get to choose how we respond. And that's the simplicity of resilience, is how you respond. And there are certain tools and practices that you can practice if you feel that you don't have the resilience skills. But maybe we can get to those 2 later. But life is a good teacher.
It rarely goes as planned.
Yeah. Rarely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I grew up with the older sister, and I think there was a lot of resilience that I actually needed in my life.
Okay.
You had 5
Yes.
like siblings, right?
Yes.
You're one of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, growing up in this kind of environment, is that because that's why you're interested so much in resilience and fitness?
If you want to eat, you got to be quick.
That is true, by the way.
True, yeah.
If you want to eat, you have to be fast. The resilience, I think what I definitely can bring from the Lars family is different opinions, handling different opinions. You learn quickly that I've often said that we're 6 kids, but we have at least 12 different opinions. and so you learn to be in this environment where it's just not one opinion or one way of doing things, but multiple ways and different personalities and all that. You learn that from early on. So that's, I think, maybe that turns into resilience at some point.
Were you the oldest?
The oldest daughter, there's 3 and 3, but I have 2 older brothers. But I think the oldest daughter on a Women's Day, I think, carries a lot of responsibility.
I'm also the oldest daughter.
Okay.
That's why you're sitting in the middle.
Yes.
Two of you, yeah. So Lena, could you tell us about kind of how do you look at leadership? What kind of, how would you describe your leadership approach? What is leadership for you?
When I was thinking about this topic, I like metaphors. I think metaphors sort of speak better than limited words. So I'm going to use chess as a metaphor for leadership. And I think leadership and life in general, I think they kind of go hand in hand. It's like a chessboard. I don't know if you guys play chess, but you need to learn how to read the board. And that means you need to know what to anticipate. So, and all the players are important. Everyone, the soldier, the horse, every player is important. And to anticipate, you need to listen, and not just listen because the game is silent in general, but listen the body language, the unsettled nuances that you see and sense in the game. And then you need to learn how to adapt. Somebody is moving something that you didn't expect. You need to adapt your game. And then you learn. And the best learning situation, if you get to play with someone that is much better than you, that's how you learn.
Indeed.
So life and leadership is like a chess game.
That's how you learn, but that's how you lose as well, right? If you play with someone who's better than you.
You never lose. You learn.
Okay.
It's a learning process. That's an attitude. It's you can always walk away as a winner if we want to use those terms, loser or winner. But if you played with someone who is better than you and you learned a couple of moves, how can you say you lost? Maybe you lost the game, but...
Yeah, but you learned a new tactic, a new strategy, a new vulnerability in the way that you approach the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're better next time.
Yeah.
I think Amy Edmondson calls it the right type of wrong. So you learn from what you did wrong.
Exactly. And then you're better. Next time you're better. And I don't know if the goal even is to always be the best. I think it's in a way better to be... You should always try to put yourself in a room where you're the dumbest person. Because that's where you learn. If you're the smartest person always in the room, then that's kind of boring.
Yeah, that's true.
It has to do with responsibility as well, right? If you're like the smartest person in the room and others accept that, then it also means that you have a lot of responsibility. If you kind of behave, if you accept that you're not the smartest, then it also kind of, you can free yourself from responsibility.
Yes and no, but responsibility is always with us. Responsibility is not tied to a title or your smartness or non-smartness. We all should carry the responsibility that is on our shoulders. I think it's a wrong way of thinking that just the top leader is responsible. And if you act like that as a leader, then everybody then pulls back and says, well, I'm not responsible. You do whatever you want to do. I'm just working here. And that's dangerous.
So leaders should behave as the dumbest. people.
They should be
in the
asking
team.
questions, in my opinion. I think that would be a good start.
That is exactly the attitude. So
Yeah.
having the attitude, it's not even that it's not the same as in Finland. There's a lot of discussion about being humble, but it's not humbling yourself as trying to play dumb. That's not what I mean. But it's more like realizing that there is no such person that knows the answers to everything. Nobody knows answers to everything. So you try to put yourself in a situations where you are able to learn. And you can learn from anybody, not just people that are sort of higher than you are. If you're a leader of an organization, you should be able to learn from everybody, from every direction, and hearing everybody's voice. And then, of course, making your own conclusion out of that and saying, okay, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that everybody's opinion, you're going to run with that, and this is now I'm going to do what you said, and tomorrow I'm going to do what you said. It's the responsibility in that sense, of course, lies on the leader to make the final decision, but just being sensitive and hearing what others say.
I can't exactly remember. I think it was John Campbell, but I might be wrong. There's a quote that goes to the effect of, none of us are smarter than all of us.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really the power of we open ourselves up to all of the ideas in the room, take the best and move forward with them.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's not, I think maybe the thing we're circling around might be something like ego. So you talk about the smartest person in the room or the person who has the, let's say, the leadership responsibility. But I think that's mainly like an ego thing, right? If you separate yourself from your ego, then everybody has an equal opportunity to present their best idea or the best idea to move the group forward, and the group goes.
Alexei, you want to counter-argue?
I think now we're discussing like a Swedish leadership style, right? When everybody's talking and nobody's taking the responsibility to make the final decision.
Well, we do all have coffee, so we're close to fika.
Lena, when you have been in a room where, as you say, everybody else is smarter than you, have you ever suffered of imposter syndrome? I have. That's why I'm asking. I suffered from it for the first time when I joined now this year my first board position. And I realized that I have no clue what these people are talking about, and they must have made a mistake inviting me into this room.
I think it's a good feeling. That's exactly where, then you know you're in the right place. So I would answer yes. But I don't like the word syndrome. It's just kind of, I just don't like it because I think it's normal. It's
Imposter normality.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't I feel like that? If you're in a new situation, you're a little uncertain whether this is actually the right fit. Does my skills actually match with what they're needing? It's always like that. But if it's a syndrome, I don't like that.
It's more like a flu, right? Like you feel like an imposter for a bit, and then maybe a couple of weeks. You take some medicine. You have get maybe a rum and tea.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. Then you just pick yourself up and say, okay, it's not that bad, and if it is, then you can make adjustments as well. But I don't like the labeling.
Yeah,
that's a really
got
good
it.
point.
Yeah, what have you done if you what in just practical terms? When you find yourself in a room with really smart people, you have a task, you have a target. What are the first things you do?
2 things: listen carefully, take notes, and ask for help if you need.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong about saying, hey, I'm new here or whatnot. Anybody who could mentor me or help me in this area. There's nothing wrong about asking help. That's being vulnerable. That's being real. And that's also engaging others. And my experience is whenever I ask for help, I don't think anybody has ever said, no, I'm not going to help you. Yeah. You're on your own. I think that's an ego thing as well, I think, is when we think we're showing vulnerability or we're not at the same level if I ask for help. I think we should kind of get rid of that.
So there's actually, there's challenge of kind of cultural differences, right? So I was teaching a couple of times, let's say, groups from Southeast Asia, and talking to them about incomplete leader, like about the benefit of being vulnerable and showing it to your people in your team. They don't get it because for them, showing vulnerability is a sign of weakness. So do you see like this kind of cultural boundaries around this concept? So it only applies, let's say, in Finland and some other Western countries, but not globally?
I do. And that's actually a very good point, that sort of cultural sensitivity. And that's part of the chess game. Like I said, read the board. Because you should always, whenever you enter a situation, you should always read the board. That's your first thing, is who is in the room? Is this a room that everybody comes with the same type of background or same education, same everything? Or is it a total mix of cultures? And that's where you have to adjust your message. And if it's really mixed culture, I've led teams where it's in America, which is typically a mixture of people coming from all over the place. My strategy has been that I explain my style very clearly in the beginning. I say, this is how I work. This is how I operate. This is my style, so that you understand what I mean. If I do this, this is what I mean. And that sort of sets the tone. It makes it easier because, again, it's not vulnerability in that sense, in my opinion. I'm opening my book myself to them, saying this is, for example, I give an example. I was new at my position, and I realized, because my mind works so that Monday morning I come typically to the office, and if there's a whiteboard, I start writing on the wall. I have tons of ideas because weekend has been perfect for thinking. And I put it on a wall, and then I noticed that some of my coworkers were panicking, like, oh my goodness, is this all, we have to do all of this? And this is the reading the board. So I sense that there is a little bit of panic. And I said, hey, we'll have to talk. And this is how I work. I have lots of ideas on Monday. By Friday, probably 90% of those ideas are like, oh, I don't know, maybe later. But there might be one brilliant thing, and then we follow up on that. And then I saw that just, whew, okay, thank goodness. But with this example, what I'm trying to say is that explain your style. Say, this is how I communicate. This is I come from this culture. In our culture, we do this. Please give me feedback if this doesn't work for you. It takes a couple of minutes for you to do that. And then you have people can relax and they don't have to wonder, why are you so direct, or why are you not saying directly, or...
Yeah, and I mean, particularly when you lead teams, everybody's kind of guessing, right? So
Exactly.
when you have a leader that you're not familiar with, everybody's trying to work out, is this the kind of thing that we're all going to have to be committed to? Is this a thing I have to contribute to? Is this a thing I have to take? Like, and where do I start the interaction? So setting out your stall, so to say, to say, like, this is kind of how I work and this is what I expect, it's a pretty good way to bridge cultural differences.
Right. And also, when you say that, then being open for feedback. If somebody in the room says, I don't think that's going to work for me, then you can have a discussion about the method. And then the method isn't a problem. Then you can, once that is settled, then you can focus on the real things while you're there.
Yeah.
But often we spend so much time on that, just trying to figure out, what on earth are you doing? Like, why do you act like you do it?
Right.
Yeah. I had a leader from Germany once. We were getting to know him in the team, and he said, I'm always open to feedback, just be plain and direct with me and book up time with my PA. So whenever we would send the meeting to book a time, we would never find any time. And he would never take any feedback. So it was a funny, it was a funny example of like, not just reading the board, but also like reading what's between the lines when leaders sometimes set out their stall. Because there are leaders, I've had many leaders, Finns and Americans alike are actually usually very good with direct feedback. But in this case, we got the message loud and clear that if there was any feedback, it wasn't going to get to his desk.
And a lot of leaders say that I'm approachable, I want to be approachable, but then the reality is different, or just they don't, realize that you need to actually put time in your calendar to people to reach you and have an open door, but that's not always happening. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It takes commitment.
Absolutely. And intention and attention.
Yeah.
I have a question related to organization that you are leading. Based on some statistics I read about 8,000 students from Finland are studying abroad. This is last year's statistics. A little bit over 400 of them in the United States. So only about 5-ish% are studying in the US of those Finnish people. And I understand that your organization wants to change that. How are you going about that? That is, I understand that's your purpose, that's your mission.
Yes, thank you for the question. We have been doing this since 1945, so a long time. During that time, the numbers have changed, of course, varied significantly. And that is a concern for us, that such a small number of Finns go and study in the US. And it's wonderful that, first of all, it's wonderful that Finns do study abroad and get the international experience. However, of course, we try to argue that you look any statistics, the best universities in the world at any given year, the 10 best, 5 to 7 are in the US. So if we don't send young students to those universities, we're going to be left out, not only from the best education, but that is probably the most important thing, is the networks that you create during those years. And those are the networks that really then elevate not only the student's personal life and career, but I would argue that also Finland, because those networks carry throughout your year. And now all of a sudden, if you study a year in Yale or Harvard or MIT or whatnot, and you have all that asset, and if you learn during that year that this is my real asset, is the network, not only the knowledge, but the network, then over time we are more in the center of the global world than where we are right now. But the tendency in Finland has been we are just a small little country here, and yes, we might go into Europe, even that we are Europe. But and I understand the reasons. Some of the reasons are that it's easier with this Erasmus and these exchange programs, that it's easier to study within EU than go, for example, to the US. And then, of course, money is always a big question, and this is why we give scholarships. Because in Finland, people don't start saving for their education as a kid. But I think it would be, the whole society would benefit if we would more systematically, and our Western neighbors, Sweden and Norway, do much better job on this. And you look at their economy, and maybe this is a simple line I'm trying to draw here, but there's probably some correlation.
For sure. I mean, Alexei has a really good time teasing me about different authors and theses and books about leadership and culture and all this other stuff that I definitely did read while I was at university. But the thing that sticks with me from my education is actually the 30 to 50 people that I spend time with that I know I can pick up a phone to if I've got a problem, if I need to hire, if I need to learn about AI and machine learning. I have that network, which are people that knew me when I was a kid and I knew nothing. So it's a really easy phone call to say, hey, I'm looking for talent, I'm looking to solve a problem, I'm looking to learn about something. And that network that you mentioned, it's such a crucial part of the education process that I think we often overlook.
Yeah, that's why we say that Finland is a small place. Because there's this network of 30 people. But actually, I have this question related to this. Yeah. So you also bring American students here, right?
No, we do just...
this one way?
We just send one way. We hope that they come back.
Then do they?
Some do, some don't.
Now, I'm asking because, here at Aalto, we have been involved in arranging this kind of exchange programs as well. And what we see is actually from our side, there's a lot of people willing to go to US and Australia and so on, but not that many people are willing to come from there here. And somehow, I think, we talk about that in business, the Finnish leaders are not really good at promoting themselves as well. I think something similar happens here as well, because we're not able to sell Finland to students in those universities somehow in a good way, in an attractive way. So what should we do? What do you think?
Well, Fulbright does more of that, bringing the students here. But I think what we should do either way is just to talk about this, what we're doing right now. It's being verbal, being out there. If we want to attract the Americans or any nationality here, then we have to be there. They're present, not just... We're so technology focused that we think that technology solves everything. If I send... I'll give you a wonderful example of technology. This might be a little sidetrack, but anyway... This is how we communicate. I met a Canadian friend on the street of Helsinki right when I had moved back to Finland, and he told me that he had just received the Finnish citizenship. And my eyes lit, and I was excited, and I said, "Oh, that's wonderful! How was it?" And he understood what I said. I meant how did they take you in and all that? And his response was, "I got a text message." That's what I mean. So it's not enough that we give a text message, we send the information, we do emails, we do promotions. You have to be present. You have to be there where the people are to
build an emotional connection.
And the networks.
Yeah.
You can't make the networks from here to overseas. You actually have to go somewhere.
Yeah, you have to spend time together. Yeah.
You have to leave your sofa.
Yeah.
And go somewhere. So we have to be present, and we're a small country. I know we can't be everywhere at the same time, but this is why it's so important, because every student that we send also, they're sort of ambassadors of Finland, wherever they are. So they are talking about the cultural life, and this is maybe the curiosity arises in them, and they might want to come here one day.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Who sponsors your scholarships? How do you find those investors?
That's a good question, and any investors who are listening, you can call me. Right now, our biggest supporter actually so far has been a Swedish investor. Swedish millionaire who has invested, and I have told this story many times, that the Swedes believe in our mission more than the Finns, which is kind of sad. But luckily, I can say that Sara and Björn Wahlroos Foundation granted us 200,000 grant this year. So thank you for the Wahlroos family. And then we have 2 American foundations that support our work.
Okay. What about those companies those US originated or US based companies who have offices here? I understood from their statistics that I was reading that it's about 30,000 people who work for US based companies in Finland.
So far, we haven't been. One of the challenges in Finland is in this donation business, if I may say, or fundraising business, is that our structure. I've also done fundraising in the US, and it's a very, very different structure because there's so many tax benefits in donating. Right. Especially end of the year, it's typical that people are looking for donation. Where can I donate to sort of work on your taxes?
Yeah.
Whereas here we don't have that, and actually I would sort of challenge even our government that as they're tightening their belt, which I understand, they should then kind of make it softer at the other end where the tax is. So if somebody gives you a grant, it should be a favorable situation for the donor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's a structural challenge partially here.
Yeah. Yeah, there's limited incentive to do the right thing in Finland, and it's a really difficult place to be because most businesses, most corporations, they're all looking for Just a little bit of an encouragement and to do the right thing.
Absolutely, and rightfully so. So that's something I think we should really discuss on the higher level, like how can we open this? How can we make it possible that companies and individuals can donate more? That there's a little bit of incentive, at least.
Are you trying to better understand Finnish leaders? You're in the right place. You're listening to the FLT podcast.
So you are leading a kind of a non-profit organization, right? So how would you describe your kind of daily leadership? What do you actually do, and how do you think it's different from being a leader in a business organization?
I think the biggest difference is that I think it's actually the most challenging environment to lead is leading volunteers, because you obviously don't have those sticks that you have as a corporate leader. So you can't set deadly deadlines and say I have to have this report by such and such days. So the leadership really becomes a motivational platform. You have to inspire. You have to be able to communicate the mission in a way that they inspire about the story. You have to be able to tell your story so that it is appealing, because what you're really looking is you're trying to buy, in brackets, their time, which is the most precious thing we have. That is the most precious thing. We all are fighting here about our time, how we spend it. So I'm trying to buy somebody's time without giving really anything back. So it's almost like an impossible situation. So when you think, so what is it that or a person who gives voluntarily their time and knowledge and wisdom, what is it that they give back? So it has to be a common cause that they believe in, that they feel valued, they feel heard. So technically they're all the same leadership skills, but you can't force anything. But you have to inspire.
It must be tough from an energy perspective, like to play the inspiration card like every day, like, you know what I mean, to get people engendered. Like, I mean, it's a good thing, I think, because a lot of leaders probably fall back on the mechanisms of organization.
I actually love it, because who wouldn't live every day inspired?
That's true. Yeah.
So why wouldn't you? Because to live inspired that's your own choice. It has nothing to do with your circumstances. You can wake up and it's raining, and it's no longer November, but November is probably the best metaphor in Finland. Like a November day when it's like a dark and slushy and all of that, and everything is going south and it's windy and whatnot, and you're out of money and whatever. But so the choice is, again, maybe we go back to the resilience where we started, is do I just focus on all this outside things that are not going, or do I want to live my time? We talked about time, how time is valuable, and I have this time. How do I want to live this time? Inspired? And it's really my choice. I'm this naive.
No.
I'm very naive, but this is how I live.
No, that's probably resilience, right? As you say. Yeah. You also said that resilience, in one of the articles I read, that resilience is curiosity to you. What do you mean with that?
It's being able to see always opportunities rather than problems. Because the question in resilience is, it's all about really energy. You have a certain amount of energy per day. One day you have more energy, other days you have less energy. But anyway, it's a limited amount of energy that you have. So the question is, where do you focus your energy? Do you focus it on the opportunities, or do you focus it on the problem? And if you focus it on the opportunities, it inspires you more. And it's sort of a fuel that refills itself. But if you spend your time in just focusing on the problems, and this doesn't mean that I don't have days then I don't feel sad or bad, or I'm not trying to be like ultra optimistic in a way, but every second and every moment you have the choice. Even if you don't feel, even if the circumstances are not good, you still can focus your energy to something that is taking you forward rather than backwards. We have the tendency of living in, maybe with fear about being present, because we have the tendency of either living in the past, which is dead. Past is dead. You can't live in the past. The future is an illusion because it never happens, because this moment constantly moves. So, but that's where we try to live, either past or future. And we try to avoid this moment where actually everything happens. This is why we don't listen. Because our mind is rushing already to the next meeting, and we're already next year's budget and whatnot. And then we miss all these little nuances and signs. And so to be more present is resilience.
Right.
Well, today's Friday. I'm already thinking about the weekend.
Yeah, there you go.
But actually, so this resilience thing, how do you think it's a natural Finnish trait, kind of, this resilience? I'm asking because just recently I watched this movie, Sisu, and there's a lot of resilience going on there, right? The guy didn't want to die many times.
Yeah.
And is Sisu like a Finnish equivalent of resilience?
I would say no, as much as I understand what we mean by sisu. Maybe I'll explain how I read sisu is more this, I'm never going to give up, I'm going to go, it doesn't matter whether this is a good choice or bad choice, I'm still going to do it. It's more like once you set your mind into something, you're just going to push forward regardless. That's how I read sisu. There's positive ways as well as saying it, but I think resilience is not that you try to fill your life with million different things, but it is more like how quickly can you rebound. That's what resilience is. It's not that you're trying to overload your life with, and you're trying to be this tough person that I'm never gonna give up, but it's how quickly you bounce back from chaos. Because things happen that you don't control. And some of the sort of resilience muscles are exactly that, being optimistic. And it's the optimistic worldview and also the optimistic view of yourself. So if you see yourself, it's how you use your energy. And then it's like being focused, organized, flexible socially, and also flexible mind. Being able to see either or situations. And
I've never heard it really articulated like this, like the sort of resilience and the kind of stick-to-itiveness, like getting up every day. I feel like there's like a very deep Americanism here, because Americans tend to have that like get up and go kind of attitude, but it's been somehow recodified in a really pragmatic way. Like when you talk about resilience, I can see both that sort of American entrepreneur spirit and the Finnish, let's break down the plan, let's make it pragmatic, let's take action and let's move forward. Do you draw from a bit of your American experience and Finnish experience to put this together?
Yeah, I'm a very dualistic person. It depends where I am, which hat I had, and of course I'm a mix of both cultures, and I can't help it. So I don't know where they intertwine, but probably hopefully I can bring from both cultures and mix the good from both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired. I'm not thinking about the weekend just yet.
Good.
Like you. But actually, from my experience living in Finland, quite often I get to hear that, Finns are not optimistic, but they're realistic. Because if you're realistic and not optimistic, then when things actually don't go the way you hoped for, then you will not be disappointed.
That's true.
So that kind of how that kind of, fits this resilience idea and optimism.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, and it is true. If you don't expect much, then you don't disappoint. But I think the problem with that thinking, if I think the Finnish way and the American way, is that Finns take themselves and I said themselves, ourselves, whatever, too seriously. Whereas Americans, the so-called failure is not a failure. It's just a little bump on the road. It's like, okay, didn't work out, next. Whereas Finns, like, they make the plan carefully, look at the statistics, and then a little, not too high, so that if you fail, then it doesn't hurt that much. So I'm not gonna reach this level because I want to be realistic. It's never gonna be the best anyway. So that's the problem. I think we take ourselves too seriously. There should be a little bit of lightness in this life, and not just always this seriousness. It's not a problem if you fail. It's a learning. I mean, who hasn't failed? Anybody?
No.
Tell me and show me somebody who has never failed. No. I don't think there is such a person. And why should we get stuck on the failure? It's the learning. Like we started from the chessboard. It's not a failure. There's two people on a game, and one only wins and one loses. But it's not a failure losing a game. It's a learning process.
If you compare Finnish leaders you have had and American leaders you have had, just do a comparison. What comes to your mind?
I have one good American leader example. His name was Charlie, and he really walked the talk. He was present at the cafeteria, was listening. I mean, and one thing that really impressed me was I was moving. I already had resigned from the company because we moved from from Seattle to Florida. And he asked me out for lunch, and I was surprised, first of all. He was the CEO, and there's multiple layers. There's VPs and directors in between. I'm just a middle manager. He asked me for lunch on my last day, and we go out. And towards the end of the lunch, he asked, Lena, if you were the CEO of this company, how would you run it? And I'm just like, what? Okay, that wasn't expected. And so anyway, I walk out of that lunch and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, and it was a sincere question. There was nothing to gain anymore. I was leaving. So it wasn't like I'm going to promote you or I'm measuring you or anything. I'm leaving. I'm out. And he still valued the opinion. So at that moment, I decided that I want to be not the Charlie's Angel, but Charlie.
The guy. Yeah. But when you talk about the game and learning from mistakes, that situation is quite rare for a leader, right? That you have somebody that you can get guidance and an input from, where there's no dynamics in play anymore, where you can just ask the honest opinion. So it was really good opportunity.
Yeah, but he also demonstrated that throughout the time I was there. So I think the listening skills, whenever one of our basic needs as human beings is to be seen and heard. It's just a human nature. That's not a cultural thing. That's one thing that connects all of us. And if we as leaders can give that moment, we always remember those leaders who make you feel that you're the only one in the room, that 5 seconds or 5 minutes, whatever the time is, you were heard and seen. That's the best gift you can give to anybody.
Yeah, it's true, because I'm doing this kind of my dialogues with my subordinates quite often, and I think the best feedback I always get after dialogues or discussions that we had when I said nothing, basically. I just listened.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of value what you're saying, yeah.
And we also have this about feedback. When I was training leaders on leadership, in larger corporations, I found that the feedback is very difficult subject in a sense that there is still a lot of sort of stigma on leaders. On the feedback that whenever says, "I want to give you some feedback," it's always sort of like, "Whoa, okay." So there's still a little bit of that, and I try to tell that, what if you would think about feedback as information? It's just information. There's no plus or minus. It's not negative, positive. It's just information, and you receive information when you listen feedback, and then you do whatever you want to do with that information. But we always have this plus or minus, this negative, positive sign, and then there's this rejection, and then the closeness because I'm closing myself. And also as leaders, it shouldn't be like I'm going to give you 5 minutes every half a year or something and to listen. That's sort of fake almost. The listening has to happen organically all the time. It's reading the chessboard constantly. You can't you can't snooze off for a second and you lose the game.
I like those types of feedback where you can say, you really annoyed me every day for 6 months for 6 months. And now I get my chance to say it. That's not a good one. So you gave us a good example with Charlie. Is there an example of a Finnish leader that you have an equivalent for? Or how would you maybe characterize general leadership in Finland?
I don't have as much experience on this, but it's the pragmatic way of approaching, more to the point where in America I feel that it's more human to human. There's a little bit of more distance, in my opinion. At least what I would like to see in Finnish leadership. We often tend to go behind the role and not be as sort of vulnerable, like as humans. So I would like to encourage to see more of that. But I have had, and those that I have met that I consider good leaders have been very authentic. And as a leader as well, authenticity means that you can say also that you don't know. You don't have to know everything. That's that creates a situation. If you try to know everything, then you're on a defensive situation because you're uncertain and you're trying to kind of fake situations. So, but I don't have that much experience. But I think one challenge that we have here in Finland is that there used to be this old boys club, this RUK, this army clubs. And then I was gone for 20 years. I was gone for those Nokia fancy years. And then when I came back, I realized that now it's no longer the RUK, but it's this Nokia club. So if you're in the Nokia circle, everybody's talking, I call to my ex-Nokia friend and ex-Nokia, ex-that. So it's a little tiny little circle. So I would just challenge people to be more open-minded and look for expertise from outside of your tiny little world. Life might be surprisingly interesting.
I think we
guys want to respond.
I think we can find some parallels there. That if you step outside of the Nokia circle, there may be opportunities and good fun to be had.
On the authenticity, I had a chance to, in my previous Nokia life, I had a chance to interview her, and she was talking about authenticity, and she said that it saves a lot of time when you are authentic. People know what they can expect. And it also saves a lot of energy. And I thought that was well said.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to.
But this is actually very fundamental. And I've been thinking a lot about this. Like this being able to acknowledge that you don't know something takes a lot of self-confidence. But how to develop this kind of thing? Because if you're like a junior leader, I mean, this is very difficult to do. Because if you acknowledge that you don't know something, then people will, something will happen to you. But I think over time with experience, you can develop the self-confidence, and then it's easy for you to say, this I don't know, tell me how things are done, and so on. But I mean, how to make this step to convince yourself that you can acknowledge that you don't know something? What would be your advice?
You start by speaking the truth. The faking is not going to take you anywhere. This fake it till you make it. It works in a sense that, yes, you can, if you don't have confidence, you can feel scared. The feeling is separate from how you act. So you can feel scared if you're young and you're just starting, you feel scared, but then, you trust that you are at the right place at the right time. But nobody is ever ready. So just understanding that there is no perfect people out there. Whether you're young or older, you have your own vulnerabilities. And the faster you become okay with that you're not knowing everything. And nobody hired you to know everything.
I can also, if I take it back to your original analogy, right? So when you're a junior leader, reading the game is very important, right? Because learning to adapt, learning to accept defeat and move on, that's the main piece, right? So in that game, when you read the game, having answers is very important. But I can tell you that if you want to move into senior leadership, we don't really look at how do you act. We look at how do you react. So how did you lose the game? How did you learn? How did you reapply what you learned in the way forward? So if you're thinking that as a leader, you have to have all the answers, you're not going to give an opportunity for anybody else to see how do you react in uncertain times. Because that reaction is the thing that will mark you out as a leader for the future. Not that I'd solved the case every time, but that when I didn't solve the case, it didn't kill me. I got back on my feet. I came back into work. I still had my team. I still had my trust. And we moved forward together.
So you should learn to fail in style with lots of dignity.
I mean, failing in style.
I like that. Failing in style. I love it.
Yeah. The only thing there is that organizations don't reward you for bouncing back from a failure.
Some organizations.
Some organization, yeah. Well, maybe there's a challenge for organizations to reword failing. What does failing mean? What does success mean? If we're talking to young people and they want to be successful, whose success are you chasing? You should be very clear what is success for you. Nobody else should tell you what it means.
Right.
If for me, success is having a balanced life and I am able to be happy the morning when I wake up, whether it's November or not, that's success to me. Then I'm not going to be shaken very easily.
And like you said, so it's the difference between winning and losing and succeeding and failing.
Exactly.
Good leadership is knowing the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to give myself a little bit of air there. That's okay. Lena, this has been just fantastic. It's flown by. This has been a really fun conversation. That's like, I can't believe it's gone so quickly. But thank you for the time and for your insights and your thoughts today. I hope you're okay. Hope you had fun.
Thank you. It has been an honor. That's a fun conversation, good questions, and always good to expand my network as well.
Awesome. Same here. Very glad we can be part of this, Sam. And for anybody that wants to learn or work or do business in Finland, welcome. It's not
do it.
We do, exactly. We don't talk about it so much. Just come and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Lena Grenat from SAM, the Finnish American Cooperation Society, loosely translated. I thought she was a bunch of fun, and there was a lot of really good conversation. How do you guys feel? Alexei?
Thanks, Mark. Well, I think there were a lot of good things covered, really. What kind of, stood out for me, I guess, I was a bit surprised that when she talked about the student exchange programs that they run, I was surprised that it's only one-way exchange, actually. Like Finns going to US and no American students coming here. I think that's something that should be improved and worked on, I think. I mean, if you want to promote Finnish way of doing things, it might be useful for American students to come and enjoy. You know, they say that Finland has the best student life actually in the world. So then of course, I mean, she talked quite a bit about the importance of being resilience in the workplace. So we discussed this. I think at some point there was this concept of like you're supposed to learn to fail in style. But I think that's a really important thing. And then I think the question for me is to what extent resilience is part of like Finnish leadership culture. I think it would be nice to ask our other guests as well. What do they think about this? Are Finns really good at failing and starting things from beginning again? And then, of course, the most fundamental thing for me that we discussed was this, what she talked about, that it's okay to make mistakes, acknowledge that, and then just continue and learn from them. I think it's really hard to do because there's a lot of things in organizations that kind of do not really support this kind of behavior. Mm-hmm. But I also think that this is a great thing from the point of view of like personal learning and development, of course, if you're able to acknowledge when you don't do something right and make mistakes that, you know, you acknowledge that you try to learn and do things better next time. But then it's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of self-confidence you need to have in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, and there's a difference between the personal angle and how you look in a group. You know what I mean? If you're the only person in the group that's admitting the mistakes, well, then it's not likely you're going to be selected for leadership, right? So It really does kind of like depend a lot on the context.
I was just reading Amy Edmondson's The Fearless Organization again. And in her study, just related to this failing in style, in her study, the most high-performing groups in the hospital she studied made also the highest amount of mistakes. Yeah. And the thing was that the group was so safe that they could admit to their mistakes. And but you're right. It's probably, as a leader, not so easy to actually create that safety that everybody can admit to their failure and not blame. I know leaders who blame. Yeah. And also teams, not necessarily down to the leader. So leaders, it really does depend on the environment. I was also thinking of this exchange, and I liked what she said, that now that the world is so volatile and more and more complex every day, you actually should know the US better. And the way they try to contribute to that little exchange of knowledge and getting to know your enemy, if you can call you as our enemy, better. But I think that was the word she used. Then I think that's an ambitious goal. I admire that, and I agree with that as well. I think there's a lot of that. If Finland wants to be more international, and when we've talked previously about building networks, if Finnish leaders want to expand, then more time in America or with American colleagues is obviously massively important. The thing I was left with, I think, was a bit more like, on the surface, superficially, if you think about Americans and Finns, they're very different, particularly in sort of communication styles and their approach to work and leadership. But what I got to realize after talking with Lena is that there are some very deep principled similarities. So about the providence of the individual and resilience and the ability to kind of get back up after being knocked down. Those things at a very sort of deep cultural level are very common actually between American and Finnish working styles. So I'd never thought about that before because I've always thought of Americans as brash and Finns as sort of reserved and quiet. But actually on that deeper level, I think there's more in common than we'd perhaps like to recognize. You're right.
Okay. That'll do us for another episode. Massive thanks to Lena, who was just a ton of fun to discuss with. Thanks as always, to Bella behind the mic and the lights. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can send us an email at contact@the-flt.com. You can also visit our webpage, which has a lot of information on how to reach out to us and how to work with us. Thanks again for listening, and thank you, Annalie and Alexei, for your fantastic input.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, guys. Bye.